Good evening, D3 Hoops basketball fans. Welcome to the new year. Happy New Year. And I hope you're ready because the new year's already off to a bang. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Welcome into another edition of Hoopsville, the first one back in the new semester after the new year. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you'll enjoy this one, as it were. We always hope you enjoy this one. Here on, I think it's Golden Globe night. It is Ravens lost. Wild card weekend here in the NFL. More importantly, though, it is basketball season once again in Division III. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Again, you can tune in and interact with us if you want via Facebook, facebook.live or facebook.com/Hoopsville. We are on air there. What else? We've got... of course, Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com as well. We are on Instagram at D3Hoopsville there as well, but we don't tend to chime in as much there as we normally would. If you got questions for us, that's how to get a hold of us. We've got lots to talk about tonight, obviously, as it has been an interesting start, to say the least, to the new year. We got lots of news to cover since we last talked to you all. Let's start with the technology side. If you tuned in at all in the first semester, or especially the last show of the first semester, you know we had some tech issues. Here's what we did. We looked at both hardware and software. We are vowing to still replace our software. It just takes a little longer than we would like to basically upend, 8-7 years worth of workflow, as it were, and go to a brand new system. So we're still learning the new system. In the meantime, though, we looked at the hardware and decided it was time to readjust the hardware. So we did that too. So we redid it all, as it were. And software will come. And we're going to continue using this unless we see a major problem tonight. But hardware-wise, we're already seeing significant changes in our hardware, and we are thrilled to see those changes and to continue along. Made a couple minor changes to our backdrop, if you noticed. More changes coming. These are temporary. We're trying to figure out what we best like. We noticed after hanging up one thing, for example, that it's not going to work there as well as we had hoped. There's a little bit of glare. And our Augustana fan's going to notice his gift to the show is now a little too high, maybe. We can't seem to win. We will figure a way to get it all to work at some point in time. I would also admit maybe our camera is a little bit low. See, you don't want to shoot too much of the ceiling, but there, we'll do our best to get it to work that way. Got lots to talk about tonight. Not only do we have a new top 25 that is coming out tomorrow, we should go back a step, look at the D3Hoops.com Classic from Las Vegas. We also should look at some of the records that were set in the last few weeks while we were busy talking to all you. Again, a top 25 is coming out on both sides, and I think we got some fascinating conversations to be had there. And now we also get into our routine of talking about particular conferences, at least, or I should say particular regions, or really having guests from particular regions on particular shows. If you are a fan of the show, you know how this works. But to recap and just to remind, from now on Sundays, we will primarily talk Northeast, Atlantic, South, and Central regions. We will also, starting next Sunday, debut this season's NABC Coaches Corner segment. On Thursdays from now on, we will talk primarily East, Mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, and West, with sometimes a little bit of South thrown in there when we just have a challenge on the schedule with the South team potentially not available on a Sunday. We will also on Thursday debut the WBCA Center Court segment. Looking forward to having those two big segments coming back. You'll also notice some other changes here today and moving forward. Again, 7 o'clock Eastern Time is where we are at for the rest of the season for the most part. There is at least one Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, where that will change. More details when we get closer. We may just push this. We're actually probably going to push the show to Monday if we do one that weekend, but that's news to be released at a later date. Also, we have the Marathon Show, which is tentatively scheduled right now for January 31st. which is the Thursday before our first set of regional rankings, as I best remember it. And so we'll double check on all of that. So there you go. Lots of ways you can, lots of information, lots of ways you can interact with us. We hope you take advantage of all those. Don't be shy, as it were. So there you go. So what do we talk about? Well, first off, let's talk about the guests that are going to be on tonight's show. For starters, we'll be talking a number, by the way, in no particular order here. Number 3, Augustana men's basketball coach Greg Giovanni will be joining us. Looking pretty solid at 5-0 in the CCIW after getting past both Norths this week. They played North Central and North Park. We'll talk to him about, do we dare ask him about going undefeated in the conference? Maybe not. But we'll definitely talk about what he sees in the conference. Interestingly enough, Illinois Wesleyan, I believe, has lost 5 of their last 6. Thought they were better than that. I think they are better than that, but could they be kind of now a curveball in the conference? Wheaton certainly playing well. North Central, saw them in Vegas, was really impressed with how they played, but oddly enough, Augustana, and I don't mean that Augustana would lose, but I wasn't expecting Augustana to control or handle North Central as much as they did. By the way, scary moment in that game. Blaze Meredith going up for a block on a breakaway by Augustana, ended up driving his head into the bottom of the backboard. Really liked the way Blaze Meredith played. Saw him in Vegas, as we mentioned, but that one kind of gave you a start. Luckily, he got up. Apparently, is okay. But, jeez, that made SportsCenter, which is maybe not always the best way to do things, as it were. So there you go. Let's see. We also will talk to, sorry, as we're switching accounts here. We'll also talk to Center men's basketball coach Greg Mason on the show. Center off to a 12-2 start. Interestingly enough, got slobber knocked by Augustana back in December. Off to a 2-0 start in conference play this weekend in particular, including today with wins over Hendricks and Rhodes. What do you make of the Colonels? The 12-2 looks good, but that loss to Augustana raises questions. So we'll talk to Greg about his team and the SAA. And can the SAA maybe take a significant step forward? I think a lot of us, me in particular, thought when the SAA was formed that was going to be a conference much like the Landmark that was going to kind of step out and really be a contender. And much like the Landmark, I don't think it has. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll talk to Greg, get his perception on all of that. And we now have an all-new winningest coach in Division III women's basketball. Andy Yosinoff of Emmanuel is at 816 wins. He went past Mike Strong this past week down in Florida, appropriately enough. And not this past week, actually back in late December. We will talk to him about that milestone, why Mike Strong was part of it. Little curveball for you. Also talk to him about how much more coaching he may have left in him. And Emmanuel's in the GNAC. How will they do? I think they got a little bit of competition this year in that conference. So that's all ahead here on the show. We are double checking that we are on air, which is always a good thing. If you got questions for us, tweet us. You can join us on Facebook Live. You can message us. There's even a Periscope message because we're on Periscope. According to me, I'm connected to all 3 accounts, so just waiting for you to fire away a question. We'll certainly try and answer them for you. A reminder, again, we are on air for the rest of the season on primarily Sundays and Thursdays, though there's a couple curveballs coming, but we don't have any time off that we're expecting through the end of the season. You will see some new broadcasting partners, and we want to welcome them in. You'll see them. You'll understand who they are. We don't need to word for word them necessarily here tonight, but hope you'll at least appreciate what they're doing to help us be on the air. So we'll also talk, by the way, to Ryan Scott, columnist for D3Hoops.com. He'll come in with our top 25 double take. There's a lot to double take, to be honest, and let's talk about that. Just since the last poll was released, the top 7 have not lost. That said, it doesn't mean there isn't news out there. Hamilton got past both Keene State and Trinity this week by the skin of their teeth, or this weekend by the skin of their teeth. Had to come back. They beat Trinity this weekend 72-70. Had to come back against Keene State to win 85-80. Against Ursinus, they played a game that went 114-101. Ithaca was a 92-77 result. My question to them will be at this point, thank you, Jeff. Let me know I'm live on the main 2. It seems like they're playing with fire. They're in the number 5 hole. We'll see if they stay. MIT apparently may be dealing with more injuries, though they got past WPI by 30, which I think jumps out at a lot of people. WPI was receiving votes. 74-44 was the win by MIT. I think the injury took place in the Coast Guard game, which they won 69-54. So we have to make sure that MIT is healthy, and they always deal with injuries, and who knows why. Nebraska Wesleyan, dealing with 2 of their starting 5 out, defeated Loras 89-71 by 18 over the 20th ranked. I think a lot of people thought Loras would give them a game. I don't think anybody saw an 18-point shellacking coming, and I don't know if shellacking is the right word there in any way, shape, or form, but it's the one I used. Williams is still undefeated. They certainly look a little bit more in control, though Wesleyan seemed to give them a little bit more of a game. Moravian most certainly gave them a game, 81-72 at the end of December. Augustana, we talked about. They defeated Center, as we said, 90-64. Whitman, what do you say about them? They've scored 4 straight games of 100 or more points. Defeated Illinois Wesleyan 101-82. 105-103. They defeated Alma 101-82. They defeated Cal Lutheran 104-56 and Lewis and Clark 117-52. So the top 7, really not much to talk about. But then the losses start coming. Marietta lost to Elmhurst 76-72 before barely getting past Lake Forest or Heidelberg. The last 3 games have been anything but what Marietta has played prior to those 3 games in the sense of dominating teams. They certainly didn't do it there, including that loss. Whitworth at least got out unscathed, but we saw them take on Johns Hopkins, and Johns Hopkins nearly beat them. We'll talk a little more about that down the road. Emory and Henry came back to nearly beat Whitworth in the only game on day 4 of the D3Hoops.com Classic. And then Whitworth got past Lewis and Clark by just 12, comparing it to Whitman. That's a significant difference. Whitewater, who's number 10, lost 2 this week. They lost to Stevens Point, which I'm not that surprised about. I have Stevens Point higher ranked. But they also lost to Eau Claire, 69-65. Wittenberg lost to Denison. Plattsburgh State lost to Wesleyan. They're now 9-2. They'll get past Case Western Reserve after that. Worcester lost 3 in a row, including to Whitman and Sul Ross State, before finally defeating Ohio Wesleyan, then got past New Jersey City, and then got past DePaul. Worcester may be good, but they hadn't lost 3 in a row since Steve Moore took over the program, and that was back 30 years ago. I wasn't covering Division III the last time Worcester lost 3 in a row. They're 10-3. I think voters will certainly do a double check on that. Randolph-Macon lost to Guilford yesterday, 64-63, after barely getting past Virginia Wesleyan earlier in the week. Nichols lost 2 of their 4. They lost to Salisbury 78-71, and now we got to certainly start talking more seriously about Salisbury, though we'll get up to them in a minute. They also lost to Gordon 76-72. Not what I expected out of Nichols. I figured maybe one of those 4 could be a loss. Salisbury, if Salisbury's as good as maybe they're advertised, that could be a loss, but not Gordon. Christopher Newport lost to Mary Washington. That's a Mary Washington squad that lost to Frostburg State in the previous game. And then Loras had a rough week. Not only did they lose to number 1 Nebraska Wesleyan, they lost to number 10 Wisconsin Whitewater out of the 5 games that they played between the last time the poll was released, and had a tough game against Blackburn. Wabash, they lost to Hiram. To Hiram. Or hold on. No, Wilmington. I'm sorry, 83-80. Wilmington. Salisbury, we talked about the great win over 16th-ranked Nichols, and by the way, they shellacked Springfield 82-63. Well, they also had lost to Rowan 97-76. If you listen to any of the D3Hoops.com Classic conversations, you'll hear Chuck McBreen speak pretty highly about Rowan, that maybe they're better than people realize. Swarthmore got through the week unscathed, through the difference in the rankings, including a battle with Middlebury 82-80 at Swarthmore. Middlebury's loss to Swarthmore was not their only. Wesleyan defeated them this weekend 80-77. And then Scranton lost to Elizabethtown 67-64. This is a Scranton squad that was leading by 8 with a little less than half of the time left in the first half. Elizabethtown goes on something like a 24-13 or 34-13 run, I can't remember, to close out the half and take the lead. Scranton does not lead the entire second half, ties it up late in the contest with about a minute left, misses a shot with 4 seconds left, and Elizabethtown goes the length of the floor off the rebound and hits a 35-foot running three-pointer for the win. Hats off to Elizabethtown. But Scranton was already in trouble going into that. They had barely gotten past, really could honestly say, barely got past TCNJ 82-79, though that's not a bad result. TCNJ is pretty good. But then Wilkes, they got passed by 10. They had a battle with Kings, who'd only won 2 or 3 games so far at that point, 75-72. Barely got past Gettysburg, 71-59, and then finally lost to Elizabethtown. Scranton may also be dealing with some injuries. And if you go into the receiving votes category, it's a ton. Again, Illinois Wesleyan, who finally got past North Park on Saturday, 97-49, had lost to Stevens Point and Whitman prior to that. You go to WPI, remember they were undefeated? Well, no longer. They lost 4 games. Maryville, DePaul, MIT, and Babson over the break. Oswego, remember they were undefeated? No, not anymore. Lost to Emory, 91-73, and Denison, 61-50. North Central, again, we saw them out in Vegas. They defeated Husson 93-51, but then lost to Ohio Northern 63-61 in a game they shouldn't have lost. And then lost to Augustana before getting past Elmhurst. Johns Hopkins, they may be the best 0-2 team I have seen in Vegas, and that's better than the Ramapo squad I saw last year in Vegas, who went on to the Final Four. And I thought Ramapo was darn good. Ramapo did not look good in Vegas last year. Hopkins looked darn good. They defeated they lost to Platteville in overtime, 75-70. Could have won it. They had their Vila on the line to shoot 3 near the end of the first half. He only made 2 of 3. We'll get back to that in a minute. He'd only missed 1 coming into the weekend from the free throw line. They then lost to Whitworth, 76-74. Again, left some points on the free throw line. Vila was playing 30 minutes. He normally doesn't. Their other big guy inside, O'Neill, was out or had played sparing minutes because he had been sick coming in. So it's amazing sometimes how a little bit of an illness can have a huge effect. Vila played well. It just looked like maybe he got tired at the end and couldn't hit the free throws, couldn't get that energy to hit the shots. If he had, they probably beat Platteville. And by the way, Platteville did not impress. I was surprised by Platteville. I thought they would be better. And they nearly took Whitworth out, and Whitworth played very well in that game. Hopkins is a good team, and I am stuck now at 8-4 of debating whether I put Hopkins in my top 25 because they are a top 25 team, and they lost their main point guard in Delaney coming into the Classic. Insane how good Hopkins is. Wheaton lost to Illinois Tech, which jumped off the page before beating Carthage and Carroll. Montclair lost to both Williams. Okay. Beat Virginia Wesleyan and then lost to Rowan. Remember when I mentioned Rowan? Keep an eye on Rowan. They seem to be pretty darn good. I realize some of you may be chatting with us. I'll get to you in a minute. Montclair lost to Capital. Could Capital be good? Wartburg lost to Bethel out of the 4 games that they played. New Jersey City had a great game against Worcester, but let it get away. New Jersey City's now 10-4, heading into conference action. They got past Stockton 79-67. And a quick aside, congratulations to the New Jersey City women's team who hadn't beaten Stockton in forever. Got a win over them. But on the men's side, New Jersey City's got 4 losses heading into conference, the real bulk of the conference action now. New Jersey City may have put themselves in a little bit of a hole here with already 4 losses. Center, who we'll talk to, had 6 games? Augustana, Blackburn, Washington Lee, TCNJ, Rhodes, and Hendricks. And they went 4-2 in that run. And then a little note, Occidental stays undefeated. They really haven't played anybody. But we'll keep an eye on Occidental. Beat Principia, Pacific, Santa Cruz, Chapman, and Caltech. By the way, there's also women. And we'll cover on who lost because there were a ton of losses on the women's side too. But here's what I'm going to say that we're going to be talking about. Who's number 1? Thomas More has now wrapped up its bulk of Division III games. It's got 5 games between now and the end of February. It's just insane. They're already 21-0. They're already 21-0. And by the way, those 5 games include my assumption that they will play both games in the ACAA tournament. They defeated Texas. I'm sorry, they got 1 more game tomorrow in Division III. 1 more game tomorrow in Division III. I forgot that. They have 1 more game tomorrow. They'll play East Texas Baptist. They played Texas Dallas yesterday and barely got past them 78-75. Does that result cause voters to maybe not give Thomas More the edge? while Bowdoin, on the other hand, faced number 4 Tufts and beat them 82-63 the second half, and especially the fourth quarter, absolutely steamrolled Tufts. So the question is, who's the number 1 team in the country? Thomas More nearly took it the last vote out. Now we've got a ton of results to look at, which includes Thomas More beating Wesleyan, Cal Lutheran, Franklin, DePaul, number 1 in the country, Center, Pikesville, Lindsey Wilson, Texas Dallas. East Texas Baptist won't count in this vote. And then you got Bowdoin, who beat Wheaton, Maine Maritime, Bates, and Tufts. So Bowdoin's got one significant win. Thomas More's got a bunch on their resume, but barely got past Texas Dallas. It's crazy. And we'll still talk about all the results in the women because there's a whole mess of losses on the women's side, including number 3 team, the number 4 team, the number 5 team, the number 18, 9, 11, 14, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 25 all lost. We're used to that on the men's side. We are seeing more parity on the women's side this year than we've ever seen, even though the top is diabolically good. Andrew asks, hope guys are doing okay, and the Hope girls had a big loss to Trine. Yes, they did. And Trine, who also lost. Trine lost to Transylvania before coming back to beat Hope 73-61. By the way, I've got a comment about another game of Trines later in the show. How about the Calvin guys losing? I'm not surprised the Calvin guys lost, though that was a crazy loss to Alma. Calvin's men have just not returned to form. I think Coach Vanderstreek's a year or two away from having that program right back where he wants it. I'll freely admit, maybe time being on the committee didn't help Kevin. He really took a lot of time to do it right, especially as chair, and sometimes that backfires on you, and maybe it backfired on him. Some coaches are able to manage it. Some don't realize. Who knows? I mean, the problem with Kevin Vanderstreek is he has no assistants that are full-time. And so being a committee member plus chair plus coach, plus teacher, and everything else, I think it takes its toll. And if Calvin is starting to turn the corner, I just wish they would do it with Kevin and not have him grandfathered in. They're starting to turn the corner that coaches are teaching less. They realize that coaching is more important. Vanderstreek is still of the old guard, and they haven't really changed that rule. I'd like to see them change that rule. So there you go. Someone asked, did someone ask, oh, what is the shirt? Andrew Tice did, and thank you. Those who chimed in, I'm wearing a UW-Wisconsin Eau Claire shirt. You'll learn more later in the show, trust me. That's called a hint, folks. Ryan Semp says, how do you guys think the WIAC matches up against other solid teams in the nation? Looks like the WIAC will be a strong conference that's going to beat each other up. Yeah, I mean, Ryan, I'll look at it two ways. One, we've said already on this show this season that the WIAC is probably hands down the best conference in the country this year. It is top to bottom the best team. I think the bottom of the WIAC is as good as the middle of almost every other conference out there. They are going to beat each other up. I think that's going to be a problem. I still think they'll get their requisite teams in, as many as maybe 3, 4, maybe pushing it because there's going to be probably too many losses. But I think the WIAC is good. The problem is it's hard to gauge who's good. I think Stevens Point may be the class of that conference, but Oshkosh is also the class of that conference. And then Whitewater, I think, is playing second fiddle, and I think they went too high at number 10 in the polls. That said, they're going to be a nuisance. Whitewater is going to be a problem. Eau Claire is going to be a problem. Almost every single team in that conference, I'd say 7 of them, are going to be a problem. They're going to be tough. The bottom 3 are still going to be difficult. Platteville is good. They're not great. I thought they were better than they were. They aren't. They simply aren't. But they're going to be a problem. And yeah, I think they're as good as any other conference out there. The CCIW being number 2 in that league, in that list. It's going to be fun to watch, but it's also going to be an absolute bloodbath. To be honest. Thoughts on Emory and Henry women's team going forward after a 20-point win over Christopher Newport? Impressive. Christopher Newport also lost to Mary Washington. I don't know if I can put stock in that win over CNU. CNU, remember, is not the same team we've seen the last few years. They're kind of retooling a little bit. I like Emory and Henry women. They've shown that they can be good, a little inconsistent, but I like them. I just don't know how much stock you can put in that win against CNU now because CNU then went and lost to Mary Washington. Mary Washington team, to be honest, is not that good and lost to Frostburg State just before that game as well. So that's kind of it. We are running a little bit behind. I want to get going. We got our first guest up. It's Andy Yosinoff, the head coach at Emmanuel. Hats off to him because the man is now the winningest coach in Division III women's basketball. That is saying something, to say the least. I want to talk to him and get you to hear from him. He's a gem of a coach. Been in coaching 42 seasons now. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. When we come back, Andy Yosinoff, the winningest coach all time in Division III women's basketball, joins us to talk about that, his program, and more. Back with more after this.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school. It's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
Welcome to the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, home of Blue Gold Athletics. UW-Eau Claire has been ranked a top 5 regional public university for over 20 years. We graduate champions with the lowest debt and highest return on investment in the Midwest. Blue Gold Athletics is a Directors Cup Top 20 Division III program offering 22 sports with almost 700 student athletes. UW-Eau Claire is about excellence in the classroom, the field of competition, and the community. Are you the next Blue Gold?
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
I coined my definition of success in 1934. My definition of success is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. It's like reputation and character. Reputation is what others perceive you to be. Character is what you are.
It's on us to stop sexual assault
in any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
to stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, on this Sunday evening, January 6th. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the show. I'll mention it now. I am a Baltimore Ravens and Chicago Bears fan, as some of you may know. I pre-recorded or recorded both games because I had too much work to do. I've already watched the Ravens game. We can move on, okay? Let's move on. The Bears game I have not watched a lick of. I have turned off all alerts on it, so if you dare mention it during this show, you will be banned. I do not want to know what's going on in that game. Joining us now is probably the winningest coach. Well, not probably. He is the winningest coach in Division III forever. Last time we had him on, I think it was last season, we basically made a mental check. We will have you on, sir. We will have you on next year because you're going to pass Mike Strong and be the winningest coach in Division III. I'll admit, I didn't think I would see this one coming. But here's what's remarkable. He's been coaching for 42 years, or he's in his 42nd season, we should say. He's always had winning programs, but they don't get all the limelight all the time. Scranton certainly did under Mike Strong. But here's a comparison for you. G.P. Gromacki's at about 500 wins right now in his career. He needs to coach 14 more seasons and continue winning at 30 games a season to break the record that Andy Yosinoff has set. That's how significant this is. It's pretty impressive. So, we knew as the day was coming. We're getting it off and running right now. Joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline is the winningest coach in Division III women's basketball history, Andy Yosinoff from Emmanuel, who's 8-3 on the season. 816, Coach. That number has got to be pretty impressive, even by your definition of winning.
It is. It was a pretty Memorial Day, and we won the age 16 in Fort Lauderdale, and it was a culmination of many years of a lot of great players, and it was a pretty happy day.
Yeah, got the win over Ramapo, 68-58, back on December 30th in Fort Lauderdale. 2 losses earlier in the season, interesting enough, against Amherst in one of them and MIT in another, kept you from being able to maybe do this closer to home, as it were. Is that a little bittersweet that you guys were in Florida, or did it not matter to you?
Well, it would have been nice if it happened in Boston, but luckily I had some former players and a lot of friends in Fort Lauderdale, so it still was a very enjoyable moment.
I'm sure it was. Looked like they had a cake ready for you, just in case. 816 wins over 42 years. You're winning at it'll pop up on the graphic here in a bit for the fans watching at home. You've got a 76% winning percentage. I don't know a season. I'm looking literally since 2006-07. There's only 2 seasons you didn't win 20 games. Certainly part of this is because of the conference, but you've developed such a consistent program that it's never that you're not winning. How difficult was it to get to that point and then keep that ability of a winning program steady?
Well, it's been very difficult because when I started back in the late 70s, and then in the 80s, I think recruiting was on a much smaller scale, and it was a lot easier to keep winning. But and then over the last 20 years, especially, everyone is going to all the big tournaments. Everyone's recruiting, so it's been much more difficult to keep it going. But you got to keep working, and luckily we're in a great location in Boston, and so people are attracted to coming to Boston.
Yeah, Boston doesn't hurt, to say the least. And there's a lot of schools around there. Again, you've developed a program that is always going to win to some degree, and so not having a chance at this record may seem to some like obvious. But my question is, did you ever think you could get to the point to pass Mike Strong, or to have over 800 wins for that matter, or over 700? At what point did you think this was even a reality, or what point did you let it become a reality?
Well, when I started coaching back in the blizzard of '78, I had no conception. First of all, I had never coached women before, and I never in my wildest dream, I never even thought about it. I mean, it's just it's amazing what happened. And as I told you earlier today, it was just a fantastic couple of days. Day after I broke the record, I actually had dinner with Mike Strong at my hotel in Fort Lauderdale, which made it even. We've been friends for the last 37 years, so it was a great night. Hanging out with Mike and his wife, and I really haven't thought much about breaking any records and breaking any wins. I'm much more interested in winning the Great Northeast Athletic Conference Championship tonight. But I've been blessed, and obviously I'm very happy about it.
You mentioned it there. You had dinner with Mike Strong and his wife. I found it remarkable when you told me earlier that you two have been friends. I'm not surprised you're friends. I'm surprised you've been friends for 37 years, which means most of your coaching life. Have you at any point started saying to Mike, hey, I'm going to catch and break your record, right?
Well, maybe a couple of months ago, we talked about it, but I never really. I didn't even want to talk about it. I never talked about my team, and when it happened, it happened. But no, I didn't I really didn't talk about it. I know, it was in the back of my mind. Now I'm glad that it's finally over with, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm happy it's over with.
Good you got against Ramapo, because unfortunately the next day on New Year's Eve you lost to Messiah in a good battle, 71-66. I'll get back to some of that in a minute, but are you glad now this is over? The spotlight isn't gone necessarily, but the reason for the spotlight has been accomplished. You took it off your shoulders now. You can focus on the rest of the year?
I'm definitely glad it's over because, as I just did a few minutes ago, my real goal is really to get back to win the GNAC, which is going to be very difficult with the way St. Joseph's is playing, right? St. Joseph's Maine is playing. But, I'm glad it's over with, and I'm much more focused on finishing the season, hopefully in a championship way.
You talk about the conference. Let's talk about your team here. Messiah game 71-66. That stands out to me because Messiah is a pretty good squad this season, and you went toe for toe with them. We'll skip the Amherst game because let's be honest, it's Amherst. You know that. Only one team's been able to figure out their equation so far this season, and you have a close loss to MIT. Me reading between the lines, this isn't a normal 20-plus win season for the Saints. This feels like a really good squad you've got on the court right now.
Honestly, I think, unfortunately, both the MIT and the Messiah game, we shot awful from the foul line. Okay. We were like 23 out of 52. In the Messiah game, we were right with them the entire game. We came back from down 14. We tied the game, and then unfortunately there was a couple unfortunate. We did not. We sort of forgot to put that that circle near the basket, and it was in a high school gym, and we lost a couple of baskets there. But Messiah has a great team. But I really, I had a couple starters out. I think. Potentially, this team can do great things. One of
those starters out was Maddie McLaughlin. She's one of 4 players on this team, averaging double figures. And actually, one of them we should mention is also DiGastino, apologize, a freshman. So really, she's only played in 2 games. So 3 players in double figures, and Maddie's one of them. Led by a junior in Ramirez Tejada, I should say. And the Weaver is the other one, a junior as well. That's the scary part. Besides McLaughlin, you got 2 juniors leading the way here. This is a deep team in terms of scoring. It's also got a lot of youth on this team, and they're playing well now.
Yeah, we only have 5 returning players from last year's team. The chemistry is phenomenal. We have like 8 new players. Honestly, the potential here is, we have a lot of potential to really go, I think, far in a long ways, and I'm very excited about what's going to happen in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, really impressed with what this team's doing. But let's talk about what's ahead, because let's start with the conference. You mentioned St. Joe's of Maine has been a darn good team. They're at 12-0 on the season. Interesting enough, Albertus Magnus also off to a 12-1 start. They've caught my eye a little bit. This GNAC used to be, let's be honest, I don't want to say easy, but you guys were on top, and there really wasn't anybody else. St. Joseph's emerged the last few years. Now you got Albertus Magnus, who's trying to make things a little bit more interesting. This conference at the top in women's basketball has gotten a little more fascinating.
The conference has got much, much stronger. Obviously St. Joe's got their 4 seniors that have been there for 4 years, starters. And Albertus has a couple, big-time transfers, and they've only lost 1 game, and Suffolk is doing very, very well. This conference, we brought in Kobe Sawyer. Mm-hmm. This conference is going to another level. A lot of times we have not got the respect, I think, sometimes that we deserve. But right now, the conference is much stronger than it's ever been.
Can you win it, or is this too hard to determine here at the beginning of January when you're really just getting into the bulk of it?
We definitely can win it, but it's going to be very difficult. We have to, we have to beat Suffolk, we have to beat Albertus, and then we have to go up to St. Joe's and February 5th, and we have to beat them. I mean, it's going to be very difficult, but we can do it.
I did notice you got a quirk in your schedule. I'd ask for my refund back. or my money back as a refund, because on February 5th, you're at St. Joseph's of Maine. Then February 9th, you're at St. Joseph's of Connecticut. It doesn't seem like that's the fairest way to hand out the St. Joseph's on one schedule. Are you going to stay home at all during that stretch?
We're going to stay home. I mean, as you know, Jim Calhoun was on the men's team, so
right.
I think it's going to be very interesting to
yeah.
both St. Joe's and within 4 days of each other.
Yeah, definitely a lot of bus miles, to say the least. Let's go back to the record. I'd be probably nuts to ask you if one win stood out amongst any of those 816 so far. But what does stand out about the career so far?
No, I would say there is one win. Back in 2001, the year that we made the Final Four, we had we did not. Our gym was at the time. Our gym was not regulation.
Right.
Our gym right now is phenomenal, but back in the day it was not. And we had the opportunity to go to NYU. At the time, they were number one in the country, and we played them in the national quarterfinals. Most people thought that NYU was going to move on, and it was probably if there's one game in my whole entire career, that was the game. We beat NYU in overtime, and if there was one game in my career that was probably the most exciting, that was the victory.
Yeah, I could see that one standing out for sure. Makes sense. Something that I caught on from talking to you earlier today was I don't get the sense that now that you've hit this mark that you plan on hanging up the clipboard or the whistle anytime soon. You're in your 42nd season, and I have a feeling we might be talking to you in your 45th.
I feel great. I'm healthy. I love what I do. I live 10 minutes away. Emmanuel is a great place to coach and to work. Everyone, the school is hot, and I want to keep coaching as long as I feel healthy, and as long as I feel like I'm doing a good job. And right this moment, I can't tell you when I'm going to give up.
Now,
now, I want to keep going as long as I can.
I love that news. I'd love to see you try and get to 900, but that's just me selfishly saying that. It's pretty impressive. You got to 816. You did meet with Mike Strong. What did Mike tell you, or what did Mike say to you about the accomplishment?
Well, Mike and I have a unique relationship. I've told him numerous times, I might have beaten his record, but he accomplished so much. He was such a great coach. It was just an unbelievable evening. We stayed at our hotel, and we stayed with him and his wife, and we have so much respect for each other. It was just an incredible night, having some Italian food and a little red wine, and it was an incredible night that him and Mike and I could enjoy. Between the two of us, I think we've won only 1,631 games. It's pretty wild. He's just such a great guy.
If we start doing that math, that's a pretty insane number, to say the least. I think it's awesome he came down to Florida. I don't even know where he's residing nowadays, but I know he's somewhat been up in the Mid-Atlantic for a while. But it's great that he came down to see that. It shows you the respect that he has for you as well. By the way, I love the fact you guys play at Gene Yawkey Center. Talk about a downright old-fashioned Boston name to a place. If you can name your place Yawkey Center, you're doing well by any stretch of the imagination.
Even though the coach, which is me, is an avid Yankee fan.
Oh, I remember that now.
Yeah, so people we're 3 blocks from Fenway Park, so people are not too happy that I'm a Yankee fan, and also do not forget, I'm a New York Football Giant fan.
Well, I'm sorry for that, sir. I really am. I'm sorry.
We had a tough year.
Yes, you've had a couple tough years. Let's be honest. Hey, you know what? I just wonder if do you have the guts to wear a Yankees jersey into work ever, or do you keep that at home?
No, I'm everyone in Boston knows I'm a Yankee fan.
You don't need to show it.
I would wear it wherever I went, and I'm going to predict right now, Yankees will win the World Series next year.
Oh, he's putting it on the line, folks. Yankees win World Series next year. Well, you know what? To be honest with you, that's about as safe a bet in baseball as you can possibly make. Sir, I really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. Congratulations on 8-16 and what will be many more after this, we know. Appreciate it. As always, we give the coach or the guest the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
I just want to tell everyone I've had a tremendous experience over the last 42 years at Emmanuel College. I love the school. The school has been phenomenal to all my players, and my players are the reason I have, all these victories. We built a tremendous family at Emmanuel, and I'm so happy that I've had so many players have so much success off the court in their lives after Emmanuel.
Well said, sir. Congratulations. You've made an impact on many others, including those 816 victories, but even the losses have had an impact, and we appreciate the time you took to join us. Good luck the rest of the season. I have a feeling we'll be talking to you somewhere down the road, and enjoy it as much as you can.
Thank you very much. Have a great New Year's. Happy New Year.
You too, Andy. Bye-bye. Take care. Andy Yosinoff joining us here from Emmanuel. Again, win number 816 coming against Ramapo back on December 30th. Unfortunately, lost to Messiah. They actually have Mass Boston coming up in non-conference play here on the 8th, which is 2 days away. That game is intriguing because Mass Boston is 10-3. It's a game worth looking into. Then they get into conference action with Regis and Anna Maria next weekend. That's a split. They're at home against Regis, then on the road against Anna Maria. Watch the GNAC women. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it myself. I think that's a race that's going to be intriguing in the Northeast, to say the least. But hats off, 816 wins. That is just a mind-blowing number. And again, GP Rocco Mackey is just a little over 500. He's going to need about 14 seasons here. At least that's what the math I did to get past Andy. Just if Andy doesn't add any more wins, that's how difficult that's going to be. By the way, Andy and GP have a personal relationship. I love the tightness of a lot of coaches up there, and Andy's certainly the dean, not only in New England, but of all of Division III women's basketball. Take another break. When we come back, we'll switch gears, go to men's basketball. We'll head down and talk to Center in Kentucky about the Colonels. Yeah, kind of too easy, right? Kentucky Colonels. We'll talk to Greg Mason coming up about his squad. How good are they? Our luck has run out. Looks like we already lost our system. I think I now know one of the gremlins, and it's one of our particular breaks. So I'm going to avoid that break probably at all costs tonight. We're going to have to revamp that one. In the meantime, we will take a break that will only require me to restart the system. I now know where the gremlin is. Literally all the testing we've done, we've now figured out where this gremlin is, and I now know where to kill it. We will kill it someday. We're going to take another break. When we come back, Hoopsville comes back, and we'll talk men's basketball with Greg Mason. Apologize for all you listening on the simulcast. We will get restarted shortly.